Ramakrishna Abhaya Charana Sato Suprato Paramanando Sundaro Subala Priyo He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Saraswati Isha Vikaha Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchan Gaurani Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sudevi Pranamami Hari Pranamami Hari Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Sripad Tripurari Maharaj mostly all present are initiated devotees, right?
I'll be translating for them in this corner.
What is your name?
Tripurari.
Tripurari. So I will speak and then you will speak in Czech.
Well, maybe he can translate simultaneously when he will talk only to few people. He doesn't need to interrupt you if he can manage.
I will be in the background.
Okay. So who speaks English?
All of us.
Everybody.
Just
Okay. In a very basic way about teachings of Caitanya Maharaj. And most of you are not familiar with my theme of and style of presentation, and there's language barrier to some extent as well, so I try to speak simply about a subject that most of you, all of you should be familiar with. And so that I will turn to the Shikshastakam chapter. This is, of course, a series of verses, Sanskrit verses, thought to be composed by Caitanya Mahaprabhu himself. They appear first in the work of Rupa Goswami, a Jalavi collection of verses by known and in some cases unknown authors. And he groups the verses, many verses together under different headings. And the verses of Shikshastakam are also found in there under different headings, along with other verses. But they are not presented in Sri Rupa's work as one consistent group of verses as we think and have come to know of Shikshastakam. And as some of you may be aware, the grouping of those verses together and the idea that they were spoken as well by Mahaprabhu, one after another, in one sequence and one setting comes from the work of Kaviraj Krishnadas, author of the Caitanya Caritamrita books, amongst other works. And he places the Shikshastakam at the end of Caitanya Caritamrita, the very last verses of Caitanya Caritamrita. And the way in which he has presented them there, of course, in the context of the narrative of the Leela, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is at this time no longer a public figure. Chaitanya Caritamrita is a book, of course, that was Krishnadas was commissioned to write by the Vrindavan Goswamis, and with emphasis on the Madhya Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The prior works dealing with the life of and teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu placed more emphasis on his Leela in Nadia, in Navadvip. For example, Vrindavan Das's book Chaitanya Bhagavat has much more detailed description of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes in Navadvip than it does his later pastimes in Jagannath Puri and his travels. And Krishnadas repeatedly defers to Vrindavan Das in his work. And in his own writing considers that his work is just a little extension of the major contribution brought to us by Vrindavan Das Thakur and Chaitanya Bhagavat. That said, of course, the Chaitanya Caritamrita is quite a bit more sophisticated of the book in its language, lyrically speaking, and more so in terms of accurately representing the vision, experience, and understanding of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that is found in the heart of Rupa Goswami. Books like Chaitanya Caritamrita at the time of its writing abound, if you will, in various traditions, religious traditions, works about saintly persons and so forth that take certain liberties and literary techniques. They are very kind of political in a sense, these type of books. By that I mean they seek to present a saintly person from a particular angle of vision. They're stories that are based on a true story. We have movies based on a true story. And at the same time, there's a lens through which that true story is viewed. So the lens of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, through which the true story of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is told, is the lens of the Rupa Goswami, the Vrindavan Goswamis. And so their works are cited throughout. I remember when I was young, and I was one of the first devotees in the Western world to read the Chaitanya Caritamrita. I was fortunate in that regard. As mentioned by Malati, I was famous for circulation and distribution of my Guru Maharaj's books. And I had a close connection with one of the devotees who was in charge of the press. His name is Rameshwar. Maybe you may have heard of him, collaborator of mine. And so when Chaitanya Caritamrita was being printed, it was being printed over a 2-month period, 17 volumes of books. There's a story behind that, probably some of you familiar with that, probably one of them all printed right away and so forth. So the press did a marathon to bring out all these books. I was walking with Prabhupada on the beach in Los Angeles when Rameshwar told him where his bookshelf was at in terms of keeping up with Prabhupada's writings. Prabhupada was writing this book and they had printed this book and this book. And Rameshwar was felt like he had a good report to give to Prabhupada, that in terms of how they were keeping up with the pace that he was leading. This was a very extraordinary time in the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, to have 400-page books raining from the sky, really, of Prabhupada's heart, month after month after month, and he didn't know if the next person was going to have 10 heads or 15 arms or what. It's an introduction to a world that made our heads spin, so to speak, just to keep up with the Siksha that he was nourishing us with. So at any rate, Ramaswamy made the report to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada replied to him, but that I have finished the Caitanya Caritamrita, and so I'm way ahead of you, actually. And then Ramaswamy said that they had calculated at the press that in order to bring out the work, it would consist of 17 volumes. And that they had a plan to bring out, because they were bringing out 400-page book a month, Prabhupada's Bhagavatam, one book a month. I used to be current, with all the tapes that Prabhupada, everything he had spoken, and every book that he had read, I was current. So the press was whatever the press came out with, but he was ahead of us. So he said, I'm 17 books ahead of you then. So Rameshwar, he said that yes, we have a plan for that as well. And our plan is to print 2 books of Caitanya Caritamrita along with the Bhagavatam every month, and that way we'll catch up with you. And Prabhupada said, 2 books a month? I want all books in 2 months. You can see he had a mission. It was rather compelling. And Ramaswamy fainted on the beach at the thought of that. He said that was impossible. And of course, Prabhupada quoted Napoleon. He said that impossible is a word in Fool's dictionary. Anyway, they did that. They printed the books in 2 months. And when they printed the books, a certain number of them came off the press in advance, the advanced copies. And they had a gold binding around the gold, what we call it, seal or something. And those were to give to Prabhupada and some GBCs and so forth. The big guys, the leaders. And I was a brahmachari, but I had this connection with Ramaswamy. He was my friend, and I was very active, of course, in selling the books. And so he sent me one advanced copy as soon as they came out. So we were reading that. We were in Chicago, actually, a Polish city, not far from here. And I was fortunate to be one of the first devotees to read the Caitanya Caritamrita in English. And my first impression was, as I was saying, that all of the books are found here. Here, in this book, the Bhagavatam is here. It's the distilled essence of the Bhagavad. So many Bhagavad verses are cited. Kaviraj's system, of course, is in the context of the narrative to make a philosophical point. And wherever he makes a philosophical point, then he cites an evidential or a pramana verse, a verse of evidence from the greater body of sacred texts that would be accepted by Vaishnavas in general, Hindus in general, and by that bring his book into their orbit and canonize it, if you will. So many Bhagavatam verses. Indeed, it is the distilled essence of the Bhagavatam, and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is cited there. Hari Bhakti Vilas, the Sandarbhas, Kaviraj's own work, Vrindalamrita, and the Gita, and so I felt that all the books are present in this book, and indeed that's very much the case. It's kind of the last work of the founders, the founding acharyas of the sampradaya, and very orthodox representation of how the Vrindavan Goswamis experienced, understood Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They, of course, made the effort to locate the ecstasy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the map of the sacred texts. They understood that he has to be in there somewhere because he embodies what we are all pursuing. The end of all problems, well, when you're happy, there are no problems. So it's all about ananda. It's all about love. Love resolves all contradictions. In love, one's faults become ornaments. It's said that a mother named her blind son Padmalochan. You understand? Mm-hmm. So who's blind? Mm-hmm. And is it bad? Necessarily. So to be blinded by love, this doesn't fit in a mechanistic, scientific materialism that predominates in the world today, whether we realize it or not. Ideas like, for example, that your consciousness can be uploaded in due course onto a computer, because consciousness is just part of the brain, and the brain is a computer, a biological one, and so we can convert it to a digital one, and then the consciousness will remain on a machine, which will have a longer life than the body, and these kind of ideas. As much as they're interesting to people, there are movies about them. There was a recent movie, I forget what it was called. Saw it on a plane. No, but anyway, he uploaded his consciousness Invincible or something.
Oh, okay. I'm not up with the latest movies.
And it's been going on for some time now. These types of movies and stories and theories and so forth, and the digital, artificial intelligence kind of world is again becoming very prominent. And there have been advances, of course, in artificial intelligence. The objective, of course, then again, of artificial intelligence is to create recreate or a human being, a machine that demonstrates that we are just machines, and end the argument, so to speak. The argument being whether there's anything more than the physical. The prominent argument is there's nothing more than the physical. And of course, the goal then it remains the same. They seek the myth of modern science is to attain kind of a robotic heaven. It's, I don't know if it's a desirable kind of everlasting type of existence. Very attractive idea, but this is very much part of the dominant thinking that it leaks down to common people and causes them to act in ways that they have not thought out that well, and subscribe to different ideologies, philosophies, and so forth without thinking them through the implications of them thoroughly. Like, a lot of people reject the idea of God and spirituality and so forth, for example. But they don't realize that to give us, I gave this example last night of contradiction that's prominent. Many people in the world don't believe in God. They think it's just a fairy tale and tiresome superstitions and so forth. But they very much, at the same time, want to live a natural life, right? Maybe they're vegans, for example, or vegetarians, and want to live naturally, eat naturally, and so forth. But there cannot be anything unnatural in a world in which the worldview, the meta-narrative, is materialism, physicalism, or naturalism. You understand what I'm saying? In other words, if the world is simply physical forces and nothing more than that, then there's nothing unnatural. Oil spills are not unnatural, and Roundup, from Monsanto, the weed killer, it's not unnatural. There's nothing unnatural in a world that consists only of physical forces interacting with one another, which is what, in that worldview, human existence constitutes. There's no purpose. There's no meaning. There's nothing. There can't be anything unnatural. It's only natural forces interacting. For there to be something unnatural, there has to be something other than the physical. You understand? To go against, to contradict. So the very idea that man is doing something against, or humans are doing something against nature, if humans are nothing but nature, then there's no meaning to that idea. So the feeling, the sensibility, the common sense of it all is that we are different from nature. There's something about us that separates us from nature. Will, rational thought that has bearing on the nature of truth and so forth. We're actually in a world that's only constituted of physical forces. Rational thought has no bearing on truth. There is no right or wrong between the different atoms and the way the electrons move. There's no right or wrong, no good or bad that's ontologically rooted. Neither that then implies or mandates that there's no right thought or wrong thought, which puts an end to meaningful discourse altogether. So the implications of some of these modern materialistic ideas are probably not very well thought out by most people who embrace them in a simplistic way. It's good for us as devotees to be grounded in certain aspects of our philosophy that constitutes its roots, so to speak. For example, the Caitanya tree, the metaphorical tree of what we find in Caitanya Caritamrita, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the tree and the branches and the fruits, and the roots are his 9 sannyasins. They have some, they represent detachment. This is also a very beautiful thing. People don't stop to think about it probably, but renunciation, detachment, is glorified by everyone in the world. Everyone in the world thinks that renunciation, detachment, corresponds with truth. What do I mean by that? If you look, for example, at the justice systems in different countries, the justices, the lawyers, the attorneys, the judges, or the politicians, they ideally they are to be objective, right? They cannot be swayed by their feelings, by their attachments, by their emotions. If they're too much involved with someone personally, a judge has to recuse himself and say, I cannot sit on the bench and give a verdict in this case because I'm attached. You understand? I'm biased. I'm prejudiced in a particular way. So law, which is thought to be, in the political sense, truth, it's thought to arise out of a sense of detachment. Science is based on objectivity, which is, again, it's not about how I feel, but let's just see where the facts take me. It's thought to be very courageous and scary, where it might end up. So, this is a principle of renunciation. This is very central to all forms of yoga, and bhakti as well, because as bhakti, it's a byproduct. As scary and kind of foreboding as the thought of applying oneself in terms of renunciation is very much made up for in Gaudiya Vaishnavism by way of dressing up, so to speak, the act of renunciation. Uddhava. Uddhava is Krishna's counselor in Dwarka, as you know. And it says in Bhagavatam, he says, he's wearing the vestments of Krishna. Krishna's clothes that he's no longer interested in wearing, he gives to Uddhava. Here, you take this. I don't like this anymore. Finish with this. So Uddhava is wearing the remnants, the prasad of Krishna. He says in the Bhagavatam, this is our renunciation. He's speaking about a form of Uttam Bhakti. He's Dasya Bhakta mixed with some Sakya outside of Braj. But he has some connection with the Braj too. After all, he was sent there. Krishna loved him so much. Very touching, the meeting between Uddhava and Krishna as related in Gopal Champu, Jiva Goswami and Mathura. He wanted him to have the experience of Braj. Anyway, he did. So he's a special devotee. But he makes this point, right? We Uttam Bhaktas. Uttam Bhakta means all of you. That means you have Shraddha in Uttam Bhakti. Not Mishra Bhakti. Not any kind of mixed Bhakti, but Uttam Bhakti. You are Uttam Bhaktas of the Sadhaka type. You understand? Because we are embracing this idea of Rupa Goswami, this kind of bhakti, the tome, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, arises, as you know, Anyabhilashita Sunyam Yan Karma Aryanabhitam Anukulena Krishna Anushilam Bhakti Rutam. Out of this one verse, the whole book is unfolding. The definition of Uttam Bhakti. It's he says, Uddhava says, we Uttam Bhaktas, this is our renunciation. We wear the clothes of Krishna, and they're fancy. We wore the princely royal vestments of Krishna. This is our renunciation, he says, to the Gyanis, who are walking naked, wearing only ashes, scary people. You seen them? From the Himalayas with their tridents and so forth. It's scary. walking only with ashes and long hair and so forth, unkempt and Uddhava is our renunciation. We dress like this. That means it makes renunciation charming because it makes it a byproduct of loving Krishna. If you love Krishna, if you love someone, then the things that are not favorable to loving him or her, you won't like those things. You'll give those things up. The things that he likes or she likes, they'll become your likes. Love means you give me your heart, I'll give you my heart. We exchange hearts. So you work only from fulfilling my desires, I work only for yours. What does Krishna say? Sadhu hridayam mayam. Sadhus are my heart, and I am their heart. Buddha was saying, this is our renunciation. We wear your hand-me-downs. But it's a very full face of renunciation. Full face of renunciation. Because it's one thing to give up taking. Don't take. If you get caught stealing, don't take. So if you stop taking, you may go, why did you hit me? You're taking. All right. Then I won't take anything. I was standing in the corner, like a child in school. You stand in the corner with your face to the wall. All right, I won't do anything wrong. So this is not taking is not the full face of loving. It's part of it, but it's not the full face of loving. He has to turn around, right? Eventually. He has to enter into the society again. The Gyanis, they want to leave the society. It's a society of thieves, no doubt. We should want to leave that. But where do we go? To nowhere. To an indeterminate, ultimate reality. Where there's no taking, but there's no giving either. If there's no giving, then there's no loving. For love, there needs to be movement. Brahman is indeterminate. There are no qualities there. There's no movement there. Brahman is everywhere, so omnipresent and omniscient. So if you're everywhere, you cannot move. There's nowhere to go. If you are omniscient, there's nothing left to know. There's nothing left to know. There's nothing to do. Right? So it's somewhat boring in comparison to Parabrahman. That Brahman who's everywhere is moving, really, and constantly moving in the form of Krishna. The Braj Leela is fully animated. The more you move on a scale of spirituality from indeterminate Brahman to Paramatman, to Narayan, so many avatars of Narayan, to Ayodhya, Ram Leela, special place, to Dwaraka, Krishna Leela, Mathura, you come to Vrindavan. The more you move on the scale, the more there will be movement and transcendence. Mahavishnu, he's spending at least half his time sleeping. At least half his time he's sleeping. You make the world, better go to sleep. Oh, didn't turn out quite the way you wanted. Mostly sleeping, waking, sleeping. When you go from Mahavishnu all the way to Braj, Krishna is never sleeping. As soon as he goes to sleep, his friends are waking him up, right? Practically no sleep. He may fall asleep for a little bit, in a forest with Radha, but not deep sleep. Because the sleep is in the context of some anxiety, right? Might get caught. Coward friends of Krishna, they sleep. What about that? Nanda, Yashoda, and Vatsalya Bhakti, they're sleeping. Not really. They sleep, but not deep sleep. If you sleep, but you're just dreaming, you can't get full rest, right? What do they call that sleep that Ari? That's when you don't dream, right? Like when the mind is also turned off. So their minds are never turned off. Coward boys are only dreaming about Krishna, playing with Krishna, meeting with Krishna. But Saudi Bhakti, they're not getting nobody getting a good night's rest there. Only only appearance of sleep. And Krishna practically no sleep. It means that Bhagwan is fully animated there. And the animating force is Bhakti. Bhakti. First you have to think, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be human? Now, the dominant idea is humans are machines. We're going to make machines that are better than humans. Of course, if you make a machine, a robot, that's perfectly human, then it will start questioning whether it's a machine or not. If it's perfectly human, you will start to think, maybe there's God, maybe there's not. That's what it means to be human. So what it means to be human is to ask why. Why? Human life is a big question mark. Why? Purpose, meaning, value. Why am I? Why? What is this is a qualitative question. This question does not arise in animal life and plant life. The how question arises there. And nature answers the how question, how to eat, how to sleep. Nature answers this very readily. But the why question, nature cannot answer that. Physical forces have no purpose. You understand? The why question, this is a question of consciousness. That nature will push us in another direction to get an answer for that question. For that question, you have to go inside, not outside. Sometimes in scientific community they say there is no why questions. There are no why questions. And we would have to say, why do we have to hear that kind of nonsense? Only how questions will answer them all. There have been advances in artificial intelligence, that's true. But it's been compared to someone who wants to touch the moon, one standing on the ground, and they climbed up on a tree. They're closer now. You understand? To achieving what artificial intelligence is thought to, is pursuing. So this is a foolish idea. This is a foolish idea. What does it mean to be human? This human life is in the stage where Krishna can pursue his love life more fully. It is that is called his Nara Leela, not his Deva Leela. Deva Leela means in Golok. There's some Aishvarya there. Here, it is as if sometimes they say when they make a movie and they film it on location, that's a special extra feature. They don't make fake mountains in the background. They actually film it in Prague itself, right on the bridge. Whatever. So this is the Nara Leela of Krishna. It's very much facilitated. Love is what makes the human. This is Mahaprabhu's teaching. It's often thought that humans are differentiated from animals and plants because they have intelligence. Mahaprabhu's idea is no, because they can love. Because they can love. They can do something voluntarily. They can make a sacrifice. Love is born from the womb of sacrifice. And suffering is born from the womb of attachment. And everybody accepts that renunciation principle, whether they understand it or not. These are just common sense things we're playing out further. Follow me? It's good to think a little bit like this, and there's so many winds of thought in the world today that your contemporary people and there are new arguments and thoughts about what the world is, what life is, what it means to be human, and so forth. If we want to be players in that world and have something to say, we have to be a little acquainted with what they're saying. We can't simply take arguments from 500 years ago, what the world's like, and think we answered all the questions and wonder why people don't listen to us. They don't listen sometimes because they think we don't know what we're talking about in terms of how people think today and why they think the way they do. Our Goswamis, the founding acharyas, they were fully acquainted with the trends of thought during their time. Because they were acquainted with Sankhya, Yoga, Mimamsa, Nyaya, and so forth. These were the prominent philosophies of the time. Does that mean that's all we need to know? Be contemporary and speak about Gaudiya Vaishnavism? And to pursue Gaudiya Vaishnavism ourselves? You have to deal with the currents of thought, whether we realize it or not. They're influencing us in our life. How are they making us think? And how does that relate to the ground, philosophical ground of Gaudiya Vaishnavism? Does it have any currency in the world today? So it's good to think a little bit along these lines. What does it mean to be human? And Caitanya Caritamrita really, of course, really seeks to answer this question by presenting, as it does, Goswami's view of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They wanted, as I said, the Goswamis to locate his ecstasy on the sacred map, which is the sacred texts of the time, the standard of knowledge of the time. They wanted to locate him there because they felt that if he's not on the map, then we don't need the map. I mean, his spirituality was so obvious that he is, in religious history of the world, there is no person that more embodies ecstatic love of God than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that's just an objective statement. I mean, you can't, too many people witnessed, wrote about, and of course from their own vision and so forth, but consistently you get a picture of a person absorbed in extraordinary ecstasy. Rupa Goswami has written in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it's a book about ecstasy. A very popular subject. Years ago, many years ago, about 40 years ago, 34 years ago, we published a magazine. We called it Clarion Call. It was, I guess it was in the early, mid-80s, so 30 years ago. And it was circulated in America and stores and so forth. And we had thematic issues. It came out every quarter. Each issue had a theme. So one of the themes was ecstasy. I didn't know it was a popular drug at the time, but it was the most popular issue that we had. The idea, right, of ecstasy, happiness. the ecstasy, the joy, the ananda, the bhakti ananda of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rupa Goswami is writing in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu about ecstasy, about bhava, about sattvika bhavas, for example. He says, I'm only mentioning those that are prominent, which you very seldom see, but anyway, there's 8 or 9 of them. 9 in Vatsalya Rasa and 8 otherwise. He said, but there are others also, but they're too rare to write about. And those appeared also in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like blood, perspiring blood from the pores of his bodies. Very shocking, the figure of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his private life. Caitanya Caritamrita, as I'm saying, you follow me, was commissioned by the Vrindavan Goswamis. Krishnadas was commissioned to write about the middle pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the later pastimes. The book is centered on the Madhya Lila, the teaching Lila of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a sannyasi. What is he teaching? How to go to Navadvip. That's why he defers to Vrindavan Das. Oh, Vrindavan Das, he's the real author. Oh, Vrindavan Das, he knows. Because his book specializes in talking about Chaitanya Nimai Pandit in Navadvip. And this is the goal of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Enter into the kirtan at that courtyard of Srivas Thakur in Navadvip. To know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, sannyasi, as Nimai Pandit. Go to kirtan with him. Worship Krishna with him. This Navadvip, that is a Vrindavan. Right? Don't think that Gaur Lila is different from Krishna Lila. Gaur Lila, Krishna Lila without Gaur Lila, Krishna Lila is not complete. Krishna Lila is a failure, actually, without Gaur Lila. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I'm saying, the point is, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Krishna. There can be no doubt about this. You don't have to find a verse here or a verse there, although the Goswamis did that academically, for the sake of those who needed a verse, who afterwards said, anyway, maybe you could translate it like that, but I don't agree necessarily, and so forth. There are other interpretations. Who are you Gaudiya people, saying this Bengali is Krishna? But that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Krishna, this is really understood. The real evidence is this. It derives from understanding the psychology of Krishna. This is what the Gaudiyas have shown, that they understand the psychology of Krishna. If you plumb the depths of Krishna's psychology, then you see there has to be Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because in Rasa Lila, this is the apex, the zenith, the climax of Bhagavatam. Krishna defers, right, to the Gopika's love for him. He says, I disappeared to increase your love. And seeing your love, I cannot reciprocate in kind. Therefore, your saintliness, your sadhuness, I'm indebted to. And he says to them there, so all I can do to try to repay you, who have shown sadhu-like love. Sadhu-like love. Love like a sadhu. I cited maybe 3 different kinds of lovers. Which one are you? He replied, I'm not this one, this one, this one. Here's a couple more. And this is the kind I am. And this is why I disappeared. I disappeared to see your love grow only. And seeing it, I feel indebted to it. And by that he meant, I also feel in doubt about my own position as Rasaraj. Because I see that you taste rasa more than me. This is an existential crisis for Krishna. I thought I was God. All the yogis say that. But they don't know. They don't know that I have some doubts.
This is our theology. People have doubt whether it's God or not. Our God is doubting whether he's God or not. These are the kind of theological questions we find in Caitanya Caritamrita. Mostly you find theological questions about the nature of God. Does God exist? In Caitanya Caritamrita, Krishna is asking, am I God? I see that everyone says I'm God, but secretly I find myself attracted to her. I find her to be worshipable by me. Is she God? She will never accept that. So he has to think very deeply. And of course he's good at that, so he realizes there is something in me that makes her the way she is. And she experiences that from her vantage point. And I cannot experience that. She knows me better than I know myself. We have some experience like that. Your wife may know you better than you. She says, you think you're like that, they say you're like that. I know who you are. Sit down, eat something. Go get the dog. Whatever. So he realizes I am God, but there's something in me that she can access and see that makes her the way she is, which makes her attracted to me. So if you understand who Krishna is, you understand he has to taste that. This is psychology. If there's something to be tasted, some joy to be tasted, he has to be tasting it. Otherwise he's not Krishna. He's not Rasaraj. So if we call him Rasaraj, there must be Caitanya Mahaprabhu. You understand? Because Caitanya Mahaprabhu is the workaround, so to speak. how he figures it out. This is the genesis of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. He tells the gopis, I will repay you as best I can. Your love is like that of a sadhu. It's saintly love. He's also saying there, if you want to be a gopi, you have to be a sadhu. I knew a fellow godbrother of mine, and he was found in Vrindavan by another friend of mine, and he was observing the behavior of a young, maybe 8, 12-year-old girl. So my friend said, what are you doing? He said, I'm trying to understand Manjari Bhav. I said, better he look at his guru. Then he would better understand what is Manjari Bhav. How his guru is acting. How to become a sadhu. We want to siddha deha, but we don't care how to use properly the sadhaka deha that our guru has given us. You understand? Rupa Goswami mandates for Raganuga Bhakti, you have to do seva in a siddha rupa and a sadhaka rupa. Both. We get a sadhaka deha, sadhaka practitioner's body from our guru. Right? But then we want to get a siddha rupa. We think, what, you didn't like what I gave you? Sadhaka, you don't understand. From a sadhaka deha comes the siddha deha. The sadhaka deha is a work in progress. The body's made of senses, mind. When the senses are in touch with sense objects, for the pleasure of the senses, this creates a material identity. Our attachments, our sense of my, determines our sense of I. You understand? Out of my comes the material I. So, when we take the same senses, and we use sense objects for the pleasure of Krishna, another identity is created, another I comes. This is the Siddhadeha. Arising within such action performed by the Sadhaka Deha. So by fully engaging the sadhaka deha, the Mahaprabhu's method, of course, that is Nam Kirtan. This Siddhadeha will come out. We see it in Caitanya Caritamrita. Krishnadas is writing about the middle pastimes. The public life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, primarily. He says it in his book. The main part of this book is the Madhya Leela, and it's much longer than the Adi Leela, much longer than the Anti Leela. In that section, he's teaching Rupa Goswami. He's teaching Sanatana Goswami. He's converting Venkatabhatta in South India. He's converting Prakasananda Saraswati in Benares, teaching Vedanta. He's converting Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in Jagannath Puri. So much shiksha, so much tattva. This is the ground. He's doing Harinam and understanding philosophy. Nam tattva. He's understanding the Sambandha Gyan, the proper conceptual orientation out of which Nam Shreshtam will arise, the highest idea of the name, the mantra, Krishna Nam. And as a result of this, what happens? His public life drifts to private life. He's drawn, he's forced into private life and retirement. It means his sadhaka, this is Krishna in his Acharya Leela, right? He's playing the role of an Acharya, Krishna. Of course, in the context of that, he's Krishna seeking to experience what he could not experience in Krishna Leela. That's why I say Gaur is Krishna. No other avatar is interested in Radha's love. Varaha is not interested in Radha's love. Nrsingadeva is not interested in the nature of Radha's love. They've got their Lakshmi, that's enough right there. No other avatar has Leela Madhurya. No other, or Prema Madhurya. These are qualities of Krishna. Prema Madhurya, Leela Madhurya, Rupa Madhurya, Venu Madhurya. They don't have these qualities. Not even Narayan, right? And none of his avatars, by extension. Radha's Prema Madhurya in the full sense of the term, right? Full face of love, sweet love. Only Krishna would be interested in this. Only Krishna would be connected with this. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is all about. You wonder if Krishna exists historically as a real person. As if history was the final word on what was real. And what was not real. Who says? There are different ways of knowing, obviously. Right? How real is Krishna? We have to look only to the ecstasy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How real it is. Our preoccupation with Krishna Leela, which is the preoccupation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what it did to him. Of course, it made him bleed, perspire blood. Do you want that? Bhayavisha Jalahoy Vitoreanam Namoy Krishna Premera Adbhuta Charita. This prem is difficult to understand. Outside it looks undesirable, but inside it is Anandamoy. It's full of Ananda. And material life looks good on the outside at first, but inside it's an empty package. It's an empty package. The I that you have from your sense of what is mine is no more true than the idea that anything belongs to you. If you can't keep it, then it's not yours. Everyone will accept you can't keep everything. I mean, these are just common sense things that have been said for centuries. Every human comes up with this. You can't keep everything. You can't keep anything. wanting to, suffer. As much as you want, you may not. Krishna tells Arjuna in Gita, Dukkalayam ashashvatam. He says the material life is summed up in 2 words. Dukkalayam ashashvatam. Dukkalayam, dukkha means it's a place of suffering. And then he says it's a place of suffering, and Arjuna thinks, yeah, but I like it sometimes. And Krishna says, ashashvatam. Well, you can't keep it. If you like it and you can't keep it, now it's become even worse. Because when you like it and it's going to be taken away from you. So there's again, people, everyone understands this. This is very common sense idea. Of course, if I tell you just to give up everything, if I tell you love is false in this world, and I offer you instead, stop taking and live in some nebulous, indeterminate mukti that you can't say anything about, you can't think about, you can't hear about it, you can't smell it, it's indeterminate. It's just the end of the suffering. You have a valid argument if you want to say, well, I would just rather even try to love anyway, even if I can't keep it. You have a fairly valid argument against the pursuit of mukti unto itself. Of course, we have presenting, of course, Uddhava's idea, a very charming idea, right? Giving up something in the context of embracing something better. His renunciation is wearing the clothes of Krishna. You think, what kind of renunciation is that? Oh, it's very complete. Because not only is he giving up taking, but now he's fully serving. If you want to stop taking, that's one thing. But if you have to serve somebody, you love somebody when you serve them, then you're not going to take, but you have to do something. You understand? It's full. If you want to get rid of your karma, you want to dig a big hole and put it all in there and cover it over. That's one thing, but it might come up again, right? It might sprout, but if you build a temple on top of it and do kirtan, it's never going to come up again. So this bhakti is a full face. It says that what you want in human life, it exists. Love exists. Lokavatu lila kaivalyam. The world comes out of love. Vishnu's love. Lokavatu lila kaivalyam. It's lila. Lila means what drives lila? Love drives lila. This is the Shrishti lila of Mahavishnu. So it's on a lower level than the Braja lila. But this is what he does, Vishnu. He becomes many. One becomes many. Not for any reason, not for any lacking, but out of fullness. The one becomes many, expands himself. This is us. In this sense, the world is born out of love, the world of our present experience. And granted, it becomes problematic, but Vishnu makes a solution to the problem also. Bhakti is always present in the world. Sadhus, avatar, the Veda comes with the world. The problem, of course, it's a play, because the problems don't really exist; they're only in the mind. Suffering only exists in the mind, right? You think so?
No.
Wrong. It only exists in the mind. Well, only in the mind is there experience. The mind experiences the body if it pays attention to the body. Otherwise, the body doesn't experience itself. It's just gross matter. Only in subtle matter, in mind, which is quasi-conscious-like, because it has the power to reflect pure consciousness. Chitta does. And so there's a quasi-subjective realm within matter, and that's the experiential realm. Otherwise, gross matter is not the realm of experience. That's why yogists focus on mind, solve all the problems. Materialism wants to make the mind the brain. That sounds terrible. That means you really have to suffer. That means you really do suffer. The brain, it means the brain suffers. It means the physical, of course, it doesn't make any sense that there will be suffering or experience in something that's non-experiential. This is what they're trying to say. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, embodiment of happiness, Avananda. Yes, it looks a little bit on the outside, like, I don't know if I want to cry all the time, weep, faint, pass out, and so forth. But the Goswamis understood it was not epilepsy. Like the Orientalists, the first British missionaries wanted to say it was epilepsy. Of course, we know that epilepsy is not contagious. So it could not be epilepsy. They understood what is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstasy, and they thought to locate it on the map of the scriptures. And demonstrate to the people who accepted the Shastra at the time as the standard of knowledge that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu must be Krishna in a very special extension of his own Leela to fill in for, make up for what the Leela unto itself in the ways in which it falls short. So Krishnadas, this is writing about the Madhya Leela, and in the context of the Madhya Leela, what we find is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu drifts naturally through his preoccupation with Nam Kirtan, and understanding Tattva, and living the life of a sadhaka, and really fully taking advantage of the gift of Sri Guru in the form of a sadhaka deha, a practitioner's body. It's a work in progress, so our senses sometimes become distracted, sense objects, in relation to who we think we are. And they seek to reinforce that by that perspective. Materially speaking, we look at the world, and the way we look at it, the way we hear it, the way we smell it, the way we taste it, as I said earlier, it causes an identity to form within us, and it's an identity that's arising out of exploitation, taking, controlling. So it's not very pretty, and so we want to convert that. We want to be lovers. So we have to stop taking, and we have to start to give. We have to find the center who can take, to give to. This is the idea of Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam, the supreme taker, enjoyer. This is sadhana bhakti. So it's a work in progress. We are trying to find happiness in dead matter. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was offering us Goloka. What is Goloka? As I said, love has the power to turn faults into ornaments. So resolve all contradictions. So everything we hear in Vrindavan, everything is alive. The trees are moving, right? The rivers are standing still, and Krishna blows his flute. The rocks are melting like rivers. Everything's animate. The clouds don't rain. They cry in ecstasy. If you study Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, you understand every movement in Vrindavan is Anubhav, Satvika Bhav, relative to the rasa, different types of movements that constitute different Anubhavs, Satvika Bhavs, and internal Sanchali Bhavs, Daiva, and so forth. There's a whole world of ecstasy. Mahaprabhu said, Shrotam api upanishadam dure Caitanya Caritamrita. sounds of the Upanishads, Aham Brahmasmi, Neti Neti, don't take, not this, not that. All these sounds, Dure Harikatamata, Kampashu Pulakara. They're very far from where you can go through Harikatha, through Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Kampashu Pulakaya. He's saying, there you enter into a world of ecstasy. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was embodying that. How it would play out in the sadhaka deha. Shocking. But as it starts to play out in the sadhaka deha, as it takes over the sadhaka deha, the inner life of Mahaprabhu, any sadhaka arises. This is Vrindavan then. The whole world becomes animated. What makes a thing dead is that we look at it through a dead thing, through mind only. When we want to take a thing of the world for the I that's been created by attachment to it, we don't see it for its own purpose. So it's limited. That's why humility, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, how do you describe it? Absence of the enjoying spirit. When we want to exploit a thing for the sense of I that is false, that arises out of our attachment, then we don't see the thing for what it is, what its potential is. This is a certain angle of vision that causes us to see a static, so to speak, in a dead world. It's a different angle of vision. Therefore, where did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu experience Vrindavan? Every river was the Jamuna. Every mountain was the Govardhan. Right? Morman Vrindavan. His mind was Vrindavan. So it's not about going somewhere. It's about being here. Human life so much facilitates this. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the best example. And from his public life, he came to his private life. By the power of what he was doing in his public life, living like a sadhu. If we can't live like a sadhu, then become attached to a sadhu. That's what we have to do. Hear from the sadhu. The sadhu will be very generous with us and help us relative to our adhikar, our eligibility. Kapila Dev taught his mother, good boy, that the same attachment to material things as the cause of bondage, when transferred to a sadhu, is the cause of liberation. So, first thing is to become attached to a sadhu. Then you become a sadhu in due course. You want that somebody of spiritual consequence knows about you, thinks about you, cares about you. And you wish that the things that you would do would attract his attention, her attention. But we're not perfect, so it takes some time. But this is how we advance in bhakti. In jnana you will advance by vairagya. In bhakti you will get vairagya by sangha. Two kinds of vairagya. You will get detachment, that kind of vairagya, by sangha, by attachment. You understand? To a sadhu. And then you get vairagya. It means now by a special kind of rag. Rag bhakti. Attachment for Krishna. In bhakti we advance by sangha. Vairagya, detachment, is not an anga of bhakti, but it comes as a result of bhakti. It's not the way, it's a byproduct. And it's accomplished in an easy way. You can wear Krishna's vestments, as I said. You don't have to go naked. Wear only ashes. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu We see in Caitanya Caritamrita the main focus of the book is the Madhya Lila. The Anti Lila is there also. But what can you say in Anti Lila? This is Mahaprabhu's private life. There the method to his madness has been perfected, and he's mad. How do you teach Bhava? If your daughter says, Mom, what is love? Yeah, my brother said he fell in love. What does that mean? What are you going to tell her? Right? How will you possibly explain that? They're just speaking materially. There's no explanation. As soon as she gets a crush on someone, she understands what is love, and she can't talk about it either. She can't explain it either. There's no reason to it. No reason to it. This is, of course, a material example, but it helps us to understand the point. Obviously, we teach something about Bhava, but what is the inner life? You have to get an outer life that will correspond with the inner life. One time, the fellow told me, I was speaking about Kirtan, who was in the United States. An Indian man afterwards was in the audience, and he said to me, Swamiji, very nice, but my thinking is that the spiritual life, that should be a private thing. That's something we take in public. So he was objecting to the idea of non-kirtan, which can be public. I said, actually, I replied to him, actually spiritual life is when your private life and your public life are no different. That is spiritual life. When we actually live as a sadhaka, then you come and worship Radha Gopinath here. Then you go home. Maybe you dress a certain way when you come to the temple, maybe not. It's okay. But you act a certain way when you come here. Then you go home. As soon as you get on the tram or something, then turn on what's on the Facebook, what's happening, whatever you listen to, who knows. We have our distractions. Right? That means by our sadhana we have not understood the universality of our deity. The reason we come to the temple is because we can't find God everywhere, even though He is everywhere. So we build a temple, say He's over here. So come here. And then we act a certain way in front of God. But the fruit of that is that you turn around someday and you see Him everywhere. If you've actually done Archan, Seva Puja, if you've actually done the Kirtan, not from music for the ears, but from the heart. When Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was leaving the world, he asked that his disciples would sing Sri Rupa Manjari Pada, Mantam Thakur's song. Kunja Baba asked Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj to sing because he was a famous kirtanier. He had a beautiful voice. But Saraswati Thakur stopped him and said, I don't want to hear a sweet voice. I want to hear a voice with more realization. And he asked Sridhar Maharaj to chant, who didn't have like a sweet singing voice. Of course, I've heard it. It seemed pretty sweet to me, but comparatively, musically speaking. And of course, the greatness of Puri Goswami Maharaj was that from that day, he accepted Sridhar Maharaj as his Siksha Guru. You can see how qualified he was. He didn't say. No envy, no jealousy. Understand? Guru Maharaj said, he has more realization. Then I worship him. Then we say, we worship you. Puri Goswami Maharaj, such example. You understand? That was very beautiful. Anyway, point is, he wanted to hear the song sung from the heart that had some realization. This is a heart exercise, this kirtan. So in due course, then the universality of our deity we had the good fortune today to go to the baby Jesus here in Prague. You know the baby Jesus deity? I got this picture. It's in the car. Baby Jesus, very nice. You have a little deity of Jesus. And, you know, children, they know no boundaries. They can go anywhere, right? Naked, like the Kumars. They can go anywhere. If a 5-year-old boy walks in the room naked, you know, oh, no problem. So baby Jesus, he knows there are no boundaries. He spoke to me today about there are no boundaries. No pejorative sense of sectarianism that has to be overcome. Love your brother, your sister, your neighbor, like yourself, he said. That requires some Vedanta, to know what is the self, and to be able to love. He said, love your neighbor like yourself. How can you do that unless you understand what is the self? You can try if you think the neighbor is who he thinks he is, and you think, I'm this body, mind complex. You can try, but it's difficult. And your neighbors are also the animals. How do you do that? You understand? I mean, giving a basic teaching is a very, very good teaching. Love your neighbor like yourself. And your God with all your heart and soul. When you love God with your heart and soul, then you can love your neighbor like yourself, because you begin to see everyone as part and parcel of the same God. Right? When you understand what is Atma and what is its potential for Bhakti Ananda. Atma, what is Bhakti Ananda? What is Atmananda? Then you can love your neighbor like yourself. That's what the Gita says, right? You all know the Gita in the 6th chapter. Krishna says what? The perfect yogi is one who loves his neighbor like himself. That's what he says. Who identifies with the sufferings of others as if they are his own. He said, this is the highest yogi. I was listening to a class. It was a little entertaining. On the way here, somebody in ISKCON was on the tape, so we thought we'd listen to it. And it wasn't a good class, I'll tell you that. But I was trying to get a point, from it. And at some point, he said, and so if one devotee is chanting and another devotee is chanting, and that devotee is pleasing Krishna, and you're pleasing Krishna by the chanting, then you should like one another, right? So how can you not like another devotee who's chanting, he's pleasing Krishna, and you're chanting, and you're pleasing Krishna? There appeared to be discord in the temple, and he was addressing it, kind of like that. That's what I got from the class. But I thought, yeah, that's a good one. I had to tell him about that. I wonder if you extend that beyond the borders of the corporate group there. We're chanting, right? He's chanting. Krishna likes our chanting. Krishna likes his chanting. He should like us. We like him. So it's a good lesson for all of us. So I talked to Jesus about that today. I thought this is the teaching. So the kind of response I got. You should love your neighbor. What is the implications of this? So anyway, I got a little distracted from what I was going to say to you tonight, but I'm back to the start. In Antya Lila, this is where we find the Shikshastakam. At the end of the Antya Lila, and Antya Lila Mahaprabhu is surrounded by Rup, Swarup, and Raya Ramananda. Krishnadas has compared them in his book to Lalita Saki and Subal Saka, respectively, catering to Krishna in his ecstasy in Krishna Lila, wondering about Radha and requiring that Subal chant her name in his ear, and getting the blessing of Lalita to approach, and so forth. This is very esoteric, obviously. Some of you are really familiar with the Auntie Lila. But this is his private life. And at the very end, Krishnadas depicts him in Puri speaking these verses of Shikshastakam one after another to Ramananda and Swarup. Remember right, Swarup Damodar. And if you study them, you see what they are is in 8 verses, they are the whole teaching of Caitanya Caritamrita that has gone before that is encapsulated in the 8 verses of Shikshastakam. So he's reiterating the whole teaching of Caitanya Caritamrita through the 8 verses in his very brief but substantial commentary on them. So it's an important group of verses, and as a group, as I say, coherently or consecutive verses, that has first been shown in Caitanya Caritamrita. And I wanted to speak about the 3rd verse, which everyone likes the most, where you're told, Trinadapi Suni Jaina, Tororapi Seshtana, Amanina Monadina, Kirtaniya Sadahari. So I don't have time to go into it because of my introduction to it was rather extended, but I will remind you all of this. That this verse is a very simple verse, but very hard to put into practice. and practice is what we need, because practice makes perfect. Only practice makes perfect. You have to use your head to soften your heart. Using your head to study philosophy is only as good as you apply that. Let's make a change, internal change. So this instruction is very, very simple. It came from Mahaprabhu. Krishnadas says, at another time also in the Leela. Now it's coming out at the end, right? As I said. But it came at another time also. Mahaprabhu spoke this verse. When the Guru of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is who? Raghunath Das Goswami. At the end of Caitanya Caritamrita, he pays his respects to so many Goswamis and my Guru, Raghunath Das. At the end of Mukta Charit, Raghunath Das, one of his Leela Granthas, famous one, the pearls, his pearl story, Mukta Charit. He says, and I wrote this book, Raghunath Das Goswami, I wrote this book for the pleasure of Krishnadas Kaviraj, my disciple, he means. This is what it means to have a guru and a disciple. I wrote this book inspired by my disciple, Krishnadas. He brought this out of me. We want to be that kind of disciple. Gurudevaya Vidmehi Krishnanandaya Dhimahi Tanno Guru Prachodayat. To be inspired and to inspire them. To be inspired by the Guru in such a way that the Guru will be inspired. This is Bodhayantas Parasparam Tushanti Charam. There's a relationship that one fosters the other. You can't have a guru without a student. You can't have a student without a guru. They're one and different. Right? So, Raghunath Das Goswami, he's the guru of Krishnadas Goswami, and who else is he? In our Sampradaya, he's thought to be the Prayojan Tattva Acharya. So we have Sanatana Goswami, he wrote Sripad Tripurari, the seminal commentary on Bhagavatam, Vaishnava Toshani, Hari Bhakti Vilas. So his emphasis there is on Sambandha Gyan. Rupa Goswami, his main contribution, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This is Abhideya Tattva, the way. Sambandha Gyan is a conceptual orientation, and according to your conceptual orientation, that orientation will foster certain activity. So there's a conceptual orientation that fosters the action of bhakti, which in turn fosters the emotions of bhakti. And when the actions of bhakti foster the emotions of bhakti, then from Abhideya we come to Prayojan, the fruit, emotional life in transcendence. And Das Goswami, at the behest of Sanatana Goswami, he says, Sanatana Goswami made me do this. He writes. Yeah. Very beautifully, poetically, he has written about the Prayojan, the highest ideal of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So this Raghunath Das Goswami, how he got to there, first of all, he got the blessing of Nityananda Prabhu in Navadvip. You maybe know his story. As a result of the blessing of Nityananda Prabhu, he could escape from home and join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Puri. And there Chaitanya Mahaprabhu put him under the care of Swarup Damodar. And there he was serving, he was very young, under the care of Swarup Damodar. And he asked Swarup Damodar, Mahaprabhu's secretary, can you ask Mahaprabhu that I would like to get some personal instruction from him? So Swarup Damodar asked Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu said, he's listening to you. What does he need? You know more than me. Swarup Damodar, we see now on TV, he's a teacher of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How to step into the, he's teaching Krishna how to step into the bhav of Radha. Lalita Sakhi, she knows what is the bhav of Radha. Subal knows also. Or if you want to look at Ramananda Roy's Vishaka, she certainly knows, she's born on the same day. So, same temperament in many respects. So they are teaching Krishna how to enter into assisting into the bhav of Radha, which is what Gaur Leela is about. The last verse of Shikshastakam, Krishna says, and Radharani spoke this verse, it means it's done. He did it. Haribol. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna has stepped into the shoes of Radha. It's done. It's the end of the book, you understand? It's done. And Radha spoke this verse, Asli Shiva Padarutam Panastumam Adharshanaham. You know this verse. So this is spoken by Radha. It means Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is complete. Krishna's mission is complete now. So he was tutored in this. Gadadhar Pandit is Radha. He gets out of the way in Puri that Mahaprabhu can step into that power. And in the company of Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar, he's coached and he becomes successful. So who is Swarup Damodar? Mahaprabhu says, he wants to hear from me, that I put him under you. You know more than me. I'm learning from you. So he did not entertain the idea of who's Swarup Damodar. And he asked again, could you ask Mahaprabhu again? I'd like to get some instruction from him personally. So finally Mahaprabhu said, okay, bring him, I'll tell him something. You know what he told him? He said, don't read Facebook. That's what he said. Gramya Katha Nashinibe. Don't get involved in Prajalpo. He said, don't do that. You think, what will he tell him? Right? He's the Prayojan Tattvacharya. He wants a special instruction from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What high thing will he tell him? So we pay close attention. Mahaprabhu now going to speak to Raghunath Das Goswami. And he says, Gramya Katana Shunve. Don't get involved in gossip. And Prajalpa, Prajalpa. He says, dress simply. Don't be concerned about what the latest fashion is. Don't be. Eat simply. That's what he told him. It's coming from the mouth of Mahaprabhu into the ear of Swarup Damodar. He said, then there may be some other things, and you can learn that from Swarup Damodar. And then you know what he said? Krishna says, he said this, Trinadapi sunichena, Tarodapi seshtana, Amanina manadena kirtaniya sada. This is the other time it appears in Caitanya Caritamrita. Mahaprabhu was speaking to Raghunath Das Goswami. If that instruction is good enough for Raghunath Das Goswami, it should be good for us. Mahaprabhu says, by chanting in this way, then very quickly praying will come. By coming to Nishta, it means, that's a whole other explanation of the verse, but coming to Nishta, then praying will come. In Nishta, one's faith becomes very firm, one becomes very sure. And with that confidence, he or she becomes very flexible. You only see people that are very confident, but they're not very flexible. That's not Nishta. They're very fixed. They chant all their rounds. They get up very early. They shave their head regularly, whatever. And they spit out so much dogma. Do it like this, should be like this, should be like this. They say the same class every time and tell you should be happy. You should be in ecstasy. Be happy. You're chanting. Chanting should make you chant. Prabhupada said chant and be happy. You should be happy. I heard this class today. I said that was part of the class. You should be happy. Okay? I'm trying.
That's so hard.
So, no. Not like that. I got a little distracted. But this verse, Raghunath Das Goswami, is good enough for him, it should be good enough for us. Mahaprabhu said, when you chant like this is the decorum of a devotee. These are the regulative principles of a devotee: to be humble like a blade of grass, be tolerant like a tree, to expect no honor for yourself, give honor to others. This is like a state of mind. When chanting in this state of mind, then very quickly praying will come, he says. This means one becomes very confident, but very flexible at the same time, because one has real experience of the self in Nishta. And one has consistent experience of the spiritual reality, because he or she is not distracted when chanting, practicing, and very acquainted with the teaching, tattva that underlies the Nam, Kirtan, and so forth, Bhakti tattva. And there's a lot to learn there, so it's meant to consume your mind. Because he or she's a sadhaka, you study the angas of Bhakti and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. There are angas for the voice, angas for the eyes, angas for the engage the ears, engage the mind, and so forth. It's a whole thing, right? It's a whole lifestyle. Bhakti is a lifestyle, right? It's not something you just do in the morning and then change your dress. It's a lifestyle. So one becomes sure by way of fully engaging the intellect, and if the senses, mind, and intellect are engaged, then there'll be consistent experience. We sit down and chant to go somewhere. What will I find out today about that place? where Krishna Nam is the wealth. Goloker Premodhan, Harinam Sankirtan. It is the Premodhan, the wealth of Golok. Has been exported here by engaging in that. What will I experience today? Every day new. Every day new. Seeing Krishna every time new. I've never seen him before. I can't take my eyes off him. It's just consistent experience. So one is sure, but one is very flexible also. One is very sure that they're getting very close to something that's very big. And they're sure that I'm sure that I'm very small. I'm very sure that I'm very small. And I'm very sure that I'm in touch with the kind of knowledge that I cannot take and put on my agenda, but a kind of knowledge that has me on its agenda. We're accustomed to taking knowledge and putting it on our agenda and pulling it out to show how smart we are, to get a job here, to make our way, to get false prestige or whatever it may be. This knowledge won't work like that, only counterfeit form of it. So what is the surety in Nishta? Confidence. We're confident. As you come close to the infinite, you know what it means to be finite. And that the infinite would come so close, make you weep. I'm so insignificant, but he's treating me like this, like I'm his friend. What kind infinite in love he is. You wanted to taste love, and he's like, you were thirsty and he threw you in the ocean. You want water? Here. Anandam Buddhivardhanam. Anandam Buddhivardhanam. I wanted to be happy. But now I'm bathing in happiness. Right? And the happiness is making me weep. And my hairs are standing on end. Some abhas only in this, some shadow of what to come. So one feels very confident that he's very small, that Krishna is very, very kind, very merciful, so certainly I'll be successful. Not because I'm great, because I'm such a good chanter. And I wish you were. Why not you? Why aren't you fasting on a cross? Certainly. Not like that. I know I'll be successful because I know how kind he is, how merciful he is. There's no one more merciful. Buddha says himself. What did he say? Oh, Vakiyam Stanaka Kutam. He gave praying to Putin, certainly give to me. Who in their right mind would take shelter of anybody else? What kind of idea of God you have? This God sees nothing. You look like a devotee? Oh, looks like a devotee. Let me go there. And give myself to him. So Nishta, this verse, a third verse of Shikshasana, it is about this stage. In this stage, the road ahead is no longer winding. It's straight. But it's not narrow. Now it's very wide. And rules and regulations become realizations. Verses have many meanings. And there are many gurus. And everybody's a guru. And I'm learning from everything, everywhere. This is the really beginning of real experiential spiritual life. And Mahaprabhu has given us this fourfold kind of decorum, as I say, or behavior. disposition to cultivate along with his method of chanting Harinam. So we want, this is an interim goal. We want to become gopis and gopas. That's all a very good idea. We should know about that, for sure. But we should know, if you go to the mall, you know, and you want to go to room 108, there'll be a map. And the map will say 108 is like way up here. And what else will it say? And you are here. You have to know both things. Where to go, where I am, and what is the next step. Focus on the next step. And each step that you focus on, which is the next step in front of you, you're thinking about that place while focusing on the step ahead. You don't differentiate the step ahead from the goal. Some people differentiate the step from the goal. I want the goal, but I don't want to make the step. I can't understand that the step is the goal in the seed form. If you come to me and you say, Swami, do you have any mangoes? And I say, yes, I have mango. I'll give you mango. And you say, I heard they're very sweet. Yes, they are. I give you one. Here, there's a little seed. And not so a little big seed, mango seed. And you would say, Swami, it's very dry and very hard. I wanted a mango. I said, no, that is a mango. What do you mean? And I said, oh, well, do you take it and put it in the ground, make a hole, and bury it? He said, Swami, mangoes are up above the ground. They're not in the ground. Mangoes are up on the top of the trees. So no, you put it in the ground, and bury it. Now put water on it, sun on it. Come back in a couple of years. Right? Then you will see one little mango. Don't eat that one. Don't eat that one. Don't take that mango. See, I got a mango. Show everybody. I got a mango. Because if you get a little bhava, and then you want to show everybody, it will just dry up. You open it up. Oh, there's no juice in there. You have to come back next year. Gradually, you understand the point. So we should know the goal. Don't be ignorant about that. Know the ideal. Know how it comes. What will be your bhav? What will be your rati? What will be your association? These two, one will determine the other. The seed of rati is sadhusanga. If you associate with Ram Bhaktas, you will do Ram Bhakti. And from Ram Bhakti, you will get Ram Prem. What kind of love you will have for Krishna, that will be determined by your Sangha. So Gaudiya Sampradaya, there are two opportunities for us. A particular kind of Madhurya Bhav, that is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dispensation. And no one is giving that out more or assisting the world in acquiring that or tasting that than Nityananda Prabhu, who happens to be in Sakya Bhav. So invariably, inevitably, some people will be affected by that influence. That is the beginning influence of Gaudiya Sampradaya. Another thing, I'm writing a book about that, but we won't go into it. So these opportunities are there for us. Sakya Bhav and a particular kind of Madhurya Rasa. And by association, then Bhakti Samskar for that will come. You won't see it. It will enter your chitta and influence it. And then, as you chant and hear, and heart becomes cleansed and you become fixed and so forth, then you have a desire. Seems like your own desire. It is. It's coming from other influence. Desire to taste this kind of bhakti. And then as your desire is expressed in the environment of the Sarup Shakti, which is serving only to please Krishna, then the details of that will be filled in by your sankalpa, by your will, in connection with the Sarup Shakti. You understand? Every gopa is different. Some like bananas, some like mangoes.
There are desires there, all of them pleasing to Krishna. What are the details? This is will, what we call sadhana, in relation to mercy, grace, and impressions that come from sadhusanga. These combined, that will give you a place in Goloka. Shivandam Dam Ki Jai. Srimad Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Om Premanandi. Thank you all very much. What's the time?
7:20.
Okay, so any question? Yes.
You have mentioned there are different steps to the goal, and we actually have discussions about things like what we feel when we do genuine spiritual advancement. I understand it can be individual, but are there some general rules? What should be happening to us if we do spiritual advancement? Because, like Christians say, you follow the rules, and then when you die, it will be decided, heaven and hell, right? Follow the rules, chant 60 rounds, and when you die, you go up, you go there. That's the idea. But our idea is that we should feel during the process something happening. So it should be like the guideline. I'm doing it right, I'm not doing it right. Is there some general rules that we can hold on to?
Yeah. To do it right, then you have to do it sincerely. That is the main rule. If you want to love, you have to love. You understand? So the main rule is that you actually exercise your heart. Just like you want to chant and you want to pay attention, right? But the mind follows the heart. So we don't find some other way to control the mind. But we give our heart to Krishna, and the mind will go there. So if you chant, for example, like prayerfully, you cry because you cannot cry while chanting. You understand? And you want to be sincere, and so you give your heart, then your mind will pay attention. If you're not giving your heart, then your mind will go someplace else. There's no better way to control the mind. But it's hard to exercise the heart. It's hard to exercise the heart. With other things in the heart getting in the way. But that we have to try. So point being that you're asking for some, like, what are the rules, the guidelines, and so forth. So the center of all this, Krishna tells Arjuna says, how am I going to do this? Yoga is very difficult. What you laid out here, it's very difficult. How can I be successful? Maybe I won't be successful. Krishna says, no, I told you in the beginning. Now we're in the 6th chapter. I'm giving the end here of the teaching on yoga, and it corresponds with the beginning of my teaching about yoga. Remember when I told you at the beginning, in verse 39, I said, obviously I was talking about Bhakti Yoga, because Bhakti Yoga has fruits that are eternal. Jnana Yoga, that's come from Sattva Guna. Karma Yoga comes from Rajaguna, so there cannot give permanent results. So I was talking to you about Bhakti Yoga when I said this kind of yoga, a little bit of practice, and there will be never any loss. The gain will be eternal. Now we're at the end of my teaching about yoga, and I'm talking about Bhakti also. In fact, I'm just about to tell you, what is the last verse of the 6th chapter? Yoginam apisarvesham madhyutene antaratmanam shadavam bhajate yom same yutatamomataha. Do bhakti. Having said that, he enters into the middle chapters. And it looks like in the middle chapters, suddenly, while in the first 6 chapters, Krishna was talking about you. You are amazing, he said. You cannot be burned. You cannot be drowned.
You cannot be hurt by any weapon. When he goes through all this, in the end he says, all I can say is, you're amazing. To think about you is amazing. To experience you is amazing. To talk about you is amazing. You're feeling pretty good. After the first 6 chapters, you're pretty cool, according to the Gita. But now in the 7th chapter to the 12th chapter, Krishna appears to start talking about himself. And you might think, the guy's kind of, full of himself. He says, Sarvasya Prabhavo Matasavam. But Krishna's not really talking about himself in the middle chapters. He's talking about bhakti. But he can't talk about bhakti without talking about himself. He has to talk about himself. So it's a secondary. But anyway. Krishna's asking, Arjuna is asking, questioning whether I'll be successful. And Arjuna says, you don't think like that. In bhakti yoga, there's never any, you can't be unsuccessful. Unless you go against bhakti, of course, then that's a problem. If you go against bhakti, even in bhava, you can lose your bhava. That's possible. But obviously, that's not something to do. So we don't want to make any offense, right? To Nam, Seva Puja, offense, and so forth. Those are there. We know them. We learned them. We avoid offenses. He says, Nahi kalena kutkachit durgatim tatukachit. He goes right to the core. The way I'm answering you, he says, Arjuna, sincerity, that is invincible. So if you ask, how do I know that I'm sincere, Maharaj? That means you're sincere. That you ask such a question. That means you're sincere. So don't overthink. That's one thing. Don't overthink it. You try to give your heart sincerely. And you're your own judge for that. You can know if today I gave my heart to it entirely, or to what extent. You can have sadhusanga. You can come here. How many days a week can we come here? Once a month?
Once a week. Once a week.
Anyway, you find some friends, sangha. You get together every night. You get together and you sit in a circle, and then everyone talks, and everyone says, how I got distracted today. You do that every night, and you'll stop getting distracted because you won't want to have to talk about it again. This is sadhusanga, you see. Satam. This is another name for devotees. Honest, truthful. It's a very bold, radical idea like this. So you find some devotees like this, you get together, and you talk about it, and you confessional, go to confession every night. You don't need a priest there, just make the confession and you'll get purified. So the point is that you can judge your own temperature in this regard. Now, in the context of being sincere, you might make some mistakes, but they'll be compensated for by your sincerity. And when you understand you made a mistake, of course, you'll want to do it right because you're sincere. That's one thing. But I think maybe you're also asking for signs. How do I know I'm making advancement or something like that, progress and so on. And really, in one sense, if you have to wonder whether you're making progress, then you're probably not making progress, unfortunately. There was a girl who was pregnant, and the doctor said you could come into labor at any time. So she had never had a child, so she told her mother that, Mom, I'm going to take a nap, sleep. So if I go into labor, wake me up. You understand? Mother said, if you go into labor, nobody's going to have to wake you up and tell you that you're in labor. Okay, you understand? So, how do I know if I'm making advancement? But if you're making advancement, you will know it. And you should make advancement every day. In fact, we're not, means we have some work to do, something like that. That said, also, you're also making advancement by the way in which the philosophy is causing us to change our life. So it is causing us to look at life differently and to act differently and so forth, and that's a change. Spiritual life is about change. It's not about staying the way you are. It's about changing because you're not happy the way you are. So there's some kind of groundwork, there's, the analogy is there. Rupa is given of the person who has jaundice, and they take the sugar cane because the cane will cure the jaundice, but when you have jaundice, sugar cane tastes bitter. So there may, you have to get to the point where the medicine of Nam becomes food in Ruchi. How you'll get there, you need some philosophy to ground you. You need your intelligence has to be applied. Keep good association. Otherwise, when you advance, you'll see, oh, that's what the book is talking about. I remember many years ago, I was with Prabhupada for 3 months. 3 months? I think it was 3 months. First time I was able to spend time in Los Angeles. I was initiated before that, but he came for 3 months. I think it was like the winter of 1972. And every day I would go up to class, and we would go out the door to go on a walk. I would be there. Come out of the car, I would be there, and so forth. So I was very attached to Prabhupada being there. And then one day, one of the devotees told me that Prabhupada was going to be leaving in 3 days. And suddenly I became overwhelmed with this feelings of separation, although he wasn't gone yet. And I was weeping, and I was ecstatic. So I could understand, oh, this is what they're talking about. The book talking about this. It's happening to me in relation to my Guru. So the book is there, it tells you these things, and your experience will correspond with that. And yes, you're right. We experience now. It's not that you chant and then die and go to heaven or something like that. You have to go there now, so to speak. So, but we all come from different backgrounds, so we have different lifetimes of experience and so forth. So some hit the ground running, and all the flowers don't blossom at the same time. We shouldn't be discouraged by being a late bloomer. Be encouraged that we're in the garden at all. That's what matters, and that someone else is blooming around me is not any cause for envy. That's a cause for joy. It's working, and I'm doing the same thing. It will happen to me too. Something like that. So you have to understand what it means to be a sadhaka, and it's very beautiful. My Guru has given me a sadhaka deha, the body of a sadhaka. Let me work on that, make it, perfect it. It's a work in progress. But again, the map is there on the scripture. But first, perhaps before consistent taste will come, some taste will come. When you come to a very powerful situation of sangha and a festival and kirtan, maybe you get some, experience from that. Or it takes time for different persons. But other than that, other than the experience, a little experience of the mind stopping. Oh my God, that's so nice. The mind stopped, and I was left. In other words, the body stopped because I was fully using it only for Krishna, so it's not moving for its own purpose. And now the mind is stopped. So what's left is me, and it's not only me, the Atma. Atmananda, it's me coming out of mind and senses under the influence of bhakti. So there's some bhakti ananda. And so, first it will come a little bit here and there, maybe for an hour or 2 or 3 or 4, then for days, then sometimes for a month, and then it will come. It's not yet fully terminated, so it will return. So it takes a little time, but besides the experience, higher experience, that's so confirming. Besides all the philosophy, right? Little experience. It's just you can have 1,000 classes in one moment of ecstasy. So I'm convinced, right? Besides that, then there's the other things going away. If other interests start to wane, then then that's a sign that you're making progress, right? Because Janayati Ashu Vairoktim Chaitavaitikam. It said that by bhakti, very quickly, detachment comes naturally.
So these are the signs. Does that help?